Come have fun with us and don't forget to subscribe.
The 13 Hunter Chairman election. This arc focuses on the election of a new chairman for the Hunter Association after the death of Netero in his fight against the Ant King. At the same time, Killua vows to save the comatose Gon and returns home to free his captive sibling.
I feel like this arc was very interesting in the beginning because it's kind of like a return to the real world, their real world, right? After the epic ending that the Chimera Ant arc had, they have to go to get back to this common stuff,
An election.
An election, how do we cover up the incident, what do we tell the people, all of this stuff. And on one hand, it kind of like it's a little bit frustrating, but in a good way. Like you want to get, it's the emotion that they want to get out of you as you're watching it in the beginning. I feel like you're wondering, like, oh, how oblivious some people can be to what great things can happen in their world, and how like much they focus on the little stuff. But then we relatively quickly get into the Kirua part and his family, and I feel like that's actually really good because we were introduced to Kirua's family pretty early on, right? Like in the first arc, and then we see them coming back throughout the story, and you kind of start changing your point of view about them, your perspective on them. But I feel like it's in this arc that you really get the full picture of what his family really
and
is about.
the politics inside the family.
Exactly.
Also, it's very interesting. The whole arc is kind of split between these two things that do converge toward the end. Kirua and Aruka trying to save Gon and the election. Did you ever feel like one of these storyline was, kind of stopping you from enjoying the other? Like if you're deep into Kirua stuff and then we're switching to Paristan, bullshitting people, did you have a feeling of like, oh no, let go of this election, I want to see Aruka do something?
I guess maybe sometimes, yes.
Yeah.
But yes, sometimes, but I still enjoyed both of them, I feel like while I was way more attached to the Kirua storyline, the election had beyond it just being like interesting, it's like it's intricate and there's a lot of like mysteries and questions and like political game stuff like this, keeps you guessing at every point. But it also had Gon's dad,
yes,
who was like such a great character throughout this arc.
Yeah, I think Paristan ended up also being a very interesting character once it's revealed his real motivation. But let's talk about Gon's dad.
Right.
Because we haven't mentioned him that much apart from him being a motivation for Gon's action. Him as a character, what did you think?
I thought it was interesting that Gon's dad is, for the most part of the story, and even in the beginning of this arc, he's mostly presented through the perception of other characters. I feel like we really only get him at the end, like him as he's only revealing himself to us as a character at the end, and maybe in like very few scenes where we see him interacting and talking to some people. But for the most part, he's kind of just passively sitting there, letting other characters give their opinion or their impressions of him. It feels like everybody is kind of like talking to him, and but he's just like,
what about you though? Because you're experiencing him for himself, right, in this arc, right? He's there, he's saying his own words, he's making his own actions. Did you feel like he was well described beforehand, or did you feel like, did you make your own thoughts about who he was? Because we also talked about him as we were reacting to the show, just through the fact that he left his kid, right? Which is a big element.
Right. And I thought it was interesting that he left his kid, but then he like kind of allowed this other like random kid to follow him and maybe indirectly trained him also, Well, not directly actually, but just maybe because the kid followed him. I'm talking about Kite. So I thought, like, how do those two things go together? But I feel like they do, you know. When Gon finally caught up with him, he didn't run away like he said on the tape he might. You know, he waited at the top of the tree for Gon to come and for the two of them to like talk, you know. So I feel like it makes sense. Like all the elements that we've been given about him, all the characteristics that we've been given about him from other characters' perspectives, they make sense, you know. When we finally get like a more complete picture of who he is, and then through his own words, like you said, he says who he is and what he's all about. As for my impression of him, I feel like up until the end he's still quite a mystery, you know. Even when he reveals what he's all about and what he was interested in, it feels like it's just the beginning of what his character is about. And so in that sense, I really like him as a character, you know. I feel like there's so much more about him. And I feel like I want to get that, you know. And I wonder if, like, would we even, you know, even if the story gets completed in the end, like, would we even get the whole of this character? Or is he always gonna just be something that's, you know, a mystery, the unknown?
Yeah. I think, you know, from what we see of him during this arc, he's a really interesting character. I really like how smart he is, right? He's kind of playing chess with Parison for the beginning of part of it, and people come to him for advice because they know he's smart. They just don't like his personality, and I feel like that reflects a lot of what the character is about, right? You respect his abilities, you respect his ambition, but at the same time, like, go be with your kid.
Yeah, I was even wondering, you know, in those moments, like, his kind of arrogance, or maybe not arrogance, but like, I wouldn't say lack of interest, because I don't think he was not interested, but his lack of taking action, in even like going to visit his son.
And even if he was 100% certain that
exactly,
he would heal, still go see him, you know?
Yeah, like, where would that come from, you know? Does it come from like some sort of stronger, like, better knowledge of what the outcome might be? Or is he really just like thinking, oh, if I can't do anything, then why go? Because that would be kind of cruel, you know?
But I mean, the whole thing is kind of cruel, right? Just leave his kid to become a hunter, and then he leaves this tape. It's like, oh, you know, I'm sure you want to see me, but I don't want to see you. It's cruel. It's cruel things to say to a kid.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll never know about the mom.
I guess not.